Courage in Crisis, Conversations of Faith, Health, and Wellness. I'm your host today, the Reverend Algernon Lewis. I'm chairman of the Moravian Church, East and West Indies Province, and it's my pleasure to be able to bring you these programs to share with you. So as we all navigate the COVID-19 pandemic, we have more knowledge, more information, more to just chew on, and ideas and thoughts to come forward so that we can go through forward. We know that our God is well able. Our God does amazing things, and our God leads the way, even in most difficult times. And so today we have another conversation for you. If you were with us last week, you know that we spoke with two young people, and we have the same program again this week, meaning that we have two more young people, and we're having the same topic, which has to do with redefining faith in the midst of COVID-19. To be honest with you, I'm not so sure what that means, but I know that I have two young people here who we will talk about what faith means in as a response to COVID-19. And we have today, I'll begin with St. Kitts, close to me. I'm in Antigua from St. Kitts. We have Shioma Henry. Shioma, could you just say hello and just tell the people which congregation you're from?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shioma Henry, and I am from the Zion Moravian Church.
Good. And then we have out of Tobago. Tobago is representing again this week. We have a young man, can you believe it, out of Tobago, and we welcome you. Please tell us who you are and the congregation that you're from.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Edwards, out of the Evangel Moravian Church in Tobago.
All right. So we have Brandon from Tobago. We have Brandon from Tobago, and we have Shioma from St. Kitts. So we have these two young people who are going to be with us this afternoon. Just as we usually begin this program by asking the question, how are you doing? How are you adjusting to the COVID-19? What's going on with you now? Shioma, we'll start with you.
I am doing pretty good. I have been adjusting and coping as best as I can. Some days I'm like, what's really going on? And most days I've been good. I've been coping well.
Wonderful. Brandon, tell us, how have you been? How are you doing? How are you adjusting?
Well, so far it has been good. I have to say it has been a big adjustment, because usually you would be able to go outside, but having to stay indoors, sometimes it may be nice, but it may be taxing sometimes to have to stay at home. And the fact that you are not able to go where you may want to go as you would like. So it has definitely been an adjustment, but I'm dealing with it.
Okay, great. Brandon, I must tell you, last week we asked the question of the two young ladies who were on, where are the young men? Of course, they were not able to answer. And so now we have you on this afternoon. And I want to start by just asking you, what's happening? What's with the young men? What happened to the young men in church? We're glad to have you. And, how are you here, and how can we get more young men to be part of church and youth group and all of those other activities?
Okay, well, firstly, I would like to say that I am blessed to have a congregation that is very welcoming. So they welcome me with open arms. Usually females are more open to church, but males are more hesitant to come to church. I believe the problem is basically not seeing enough males or older male figures in the church. In order to get males into church, I feel like we just need to be more welcoming, and we need to basically meet them where they are. So not putting aside the values of the church, but trying to be more open towards them and try doing different activities to make them feel welcome and comfortable.
You're doing a deep dive there, Brandon. It's very early in the program, going a deep dive. But Shioma, do you have anything to add there? Because you are from St. Kitts. What would you say about men in church and men being involved in church and young men in particular?
I agree completely with Brandon. I was playing around with this thought earlier today. And Brandon, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The girls might draw the men to church, but the men in the church would be the ones who keep them in church. So I agree with what he's saying in terms of maybe the lack of presence in terms of men in the church might be the reason why you're not seeing as many. And the whole issue of not being welcoming as who they are, welcoming them for who they are.
But this welcoming thing, that's a question. What do you mean by welcoming, and how can we be more welcoming? Or maybe do you have evidence of being unwelcoming? I'm sorry, let's start with you, Brandon.
Okay, well, for me, I am lucky enough to not have any experiences with unwelcoming people in church. But what I would like to say is, for people to be drawn to something or to be attracted to something, they need to basically see people that they can relate to, or even people that accept them, as I would have said too. In order to be more welcoming, we can do things like basically things like activities, youth groups, different things to make them feel welcome, or even find out what they like as youths. Sometimes they may like singing, they may like instruments, even spoken word dancing. Just trying to interact with them more and find out what they like as an individual, and we can probably use that to draw them towards church.
There's a lot of wisdom there, because I think the recent studies are suggesting that in order to reach people, we need to move away from what we like for them and meet them as to where they want. What do you like to do? Where do you find meaning? What are the things that give you a high, that give you a wow? What are the things that turn your head? And meet them there. It's a difference than saying, come over here and meet me, but go to where they are. We find that actually in the ministry of Jesus. Jesus went around and met people where they are. He met the tax collector where he was. He met the woman at the well where she came. He met people in their normal circumstances. But I think in some ways what has happened is that we are saying, oh, come over here. We're over here. This is how we do things here. When you come here, you got to shape up in this particular way. Welcoming. So we're talking about men, but also want to talk about youth. Anything else we can do in terms of welcoming both men and youth to church? Shioma, you want to add anything to this? Have you found anything that worked in your church?
The whole idea or means of recognizing that the person is a person and not just somebody that a soul that you're just trying to convert, but dealing with the holistic person. So I feel in my context particularly that there is an interest in the whole being. So particularly Youth Sundays where we could express ourselves with talent, different ways, spoken word, dance, different ways. We just feel like we matter.
I'm sorry. I'm smiling, Shioma, because I think that what you're saying is so deep. You're talking about we matter, the sense of accepting me for me. Isn't that dangerous ground? When you say accepting me for me, Shioma, you are saying that if you have bad ways, accept me just as I am, love me just as I am, and allow Jesus to change me and don't try to change me yourself. Is that part of what you're saying to us here, Shioma?
I'll be very cautious in that approach. But what I would say is that we are who we are at our core, essentially. And I think it just has to be a matter of which force is manifesting. And what I mean by that is a few years ago, the Spirit of the Lord gave me a revelation about Saul. And Saul, when he was persecuting Christians, he's very passionate, very zealous, enthusiastic about it. And when he was on the road to Damascus and God transformed him to Paul, he was the same zealous, passionate, enthusiastic Paul. The only difference was that he was saved, and now the manifestations of his character were glorifying God. So I wouldn't say that you accept the bad ways in the sense of condoning, but be open to realize that this may just be who the person is, but they just need to be pointed to Jesus, so the truth of who they are could manifest in a way that glorifies God.
There's deep thought there. You want to add anything to this, Brandon?
I actually think that that's a very great point, Chioma. And what I would like to add to that is, in order to do that, I feel like we need to have activities. So, yes, church on a Sunday, we can have Bible study, yes, but different activities to engage each other and actually get to know each other on a more personal level. So we could find out the likes of each other, what we like, what we don't like. So when it comes to going to church, we would know how to put that person in a position to be able to glorify God with their talents or their personality. So we may come to church every Sunday and interact with each other, but do we really know each other? Or do we really know certain things about each other on a personal level? So that's what I feel. I feel like the interaction and the communication needs to be more deep.
So you're calling now, Brandon, for a deeper level of authenticity in terms of relationships within the church community. So you're saying, hey, you're my brother, you're my sister, so take me by the hand for real, not the fakey stuff, but for real. Get to know who I am and love me for who I am. That could be revolutionary. I think we preached about that for quite a while, and it's kind of difficult to get there. But one last question on this, though. What do you think young people are looking for? What are you hearing? I'm going to go with you, Chioma, first. What are you hearing when you talk to your friends and when they're WhatsApping back and forth, or you're liming or doing whatever else? What are some of the things that are just seeping through that you think your young people are looking for, that maybe the church can meet them there?
To be heard, one, to be appreciated, and to more or less know that there is safety or there is still love as we struggle through. That's more or less it. Just to be heard, to be loved genuinely, appreciated genuinely, and to know that on this Christian journey that we're trying to make sense of, for lack of a better term, or trying to navigate our way through, that we have the assurance knowing that we could struggle through, and still have that sense of love and companionship and guidance from especially the older members.
Oh, interesting. I like the thought. Brandon?
Well, I think she would have basically touched on everything that I was thinking, but basically just acceptance. Youths crave acceptance. Or not necessarily crave, but they would like acceptance from people in the church. Right? So I would definitely have to say that even though we may want certain things, we need to understand that we can't come into an environment or an atmosphere and want to change everything. So as much as we would like to feel accepted, we need to respect the church and what the church stands for, but definitely acceptance. Just, for example, when you come to church, sometimes we may have certain flaws, but we would just like to be treated as normal people. So when people interact with us, they can point out the flaws or talk to us one-on-one about it, but the way in which we do it, it should be more on a genuine level, and it should be more, what's the word I want? It should be more positive so that a change can actually occur.
A positive affirmation rather than a rebuke, if you wish. Okay.
Yeah.
What about spiritually speaking? Do you think that young people are looking for that personal relationship with God, whatever that may mean? And what does that mean for a young person? Do you think that they're thinking about, yeah, I need to think about drawing closer to Jesus? Is that a real thing for young people? And this, of course, a very broad brush, but I'm also asking about what are you hearing? Brandon, you can go first, and then Chioma, you can follow. I mean, begin to tell us also about your own experience of being in church, of spirituality, of connecting with God through Jesus.
Well, my journey in Christianity has definitely been basically a long journey, right? But what I've been hearing amongst the youths, a lot of young people at this age, the ages of at least 18 to 27, let's say 25, spirituality is not something that is very popular. They don't understand the importance of spirituality, right? Sometimes the thing that may draw them towards wanting to be spiritual may be an accident or something that may happen in their life, right? So definitely we would have to reach out to them to try to explain the importance of spirituality, but it isn't something that all young people want to do. And in order to embark on that journey, the individual needs to accept Jesus Christ, they need to accept God, and they need to make that decision within themselves to want to do it. But my experiences within the church, with being spiritual and having a connection and relationship with God, something that has definitely drawn me towards going to church is the family environment. I can definitely say sometimes I don't go to church every Sunday, but just members of the church reaching out to me and asking, "Are you okay?" Inviting me to church because they're saying, "Okay, well, tomorrow we have this coming up," right? So just the family environment and the support is something that draws me towards God and motivates me to want to have a relationship with
Chioma?
In our context, and the friends that I talk to, I genuinely see the hunger and the desire for God in a real sense. Almost in a sense where, okay, let me try to experience this God, I've been hearing about in church. So I could honestly say that there's a genuine desire for a closer walk with God from the young people. But young people, we want what we want, which is some worldly stuff, but we still say, yeah, Jesus, I really want to give you a try. So you could see the struggle. I think what causes maybe not the full commitment, what causes the lack of full commitment, is just the general temptations that we have as young people. And sometimes feeling, not saying that is the case, but sometimes feeling that you can't be open and vulnerable with somebody else, or even thinking that being tempted or feeling a particular way is not in keeping with trying to be a Christian. So there's different variables that cause us to not fully dive closer to God. But personally, I have met Jesus, and Jesus is very real to me. So I try my best to not force my relationship or force my understanding of Jesus on the young people that I engage with daily, but just try to live and be open with them as much as I can and point them to Jesus as much as I can in terms of my life, and maybe just get to the interaction songs, different ways that might appeal to them.
So you're also suggesting that there's need for an authenticity. When I say authenticity, in the terms of your lived faith, right?
Say it
That
again. Sorry.
you're also saying that there's need for authenticity, meaning that you're genuine, that
Yeah.
you're walking for Jesus on this side, and if you may see him at 2 o'clock in the morning, that I'm walking for Jesus at 2 o'clock in the morning. How important is that for young people, though? You can speak, and then Brandon, I would listen to you. How is important? Is that something that you find that your friends talk a lot about? The sense that church people need to be more genuine?
Definitely. That's something that I would probably say that that's probably the top three reasons why young people might be turned off from church and God, essentially, because I believe that there has been this whole facade, this whole notion that, you know, once you accept Jesus, everything becomes perfect and there is no more temptation, and you just magically wake up saved and love Jesus every day of your life. And when you when we do try Jesus, and you know, we wake up the next day and the things that we used to do before we get saved we still want to do, is like, am I really saved? You know, so yeah, there's definitely a need for being real and understanding that Jesus even said that in this world we'd have trials and tribulations, we'd have temptations, all them good stuff there, but he has overcome the world, so we just have to tap into him, but we just need to be real.
Brandon?
That is definitely true because, well, I'm only 18, so you could say I'm now becoming an adult or a young adult. But
Just finishing
at
your
the
CAPE
age,
as well. So
sorry?
just finishing your CAPE as well, your CAPE exams, your A-levels.
Yes, I just finished Cape E levels, right? So at the age of 16, I was definitely conflicted about Christianity and my relationship with God because I felt as though, I'm not sure if it is because of what church portrayed, but I felt as though when you become a Christian, you need to walk this straight and narrow path always. You really can't make any mistakes. And if you make any mistakes, you are a disgrace to God. And sometimes it just weighs on your conscience, right? So as Chioma would have said, I think that we need to be more real and explain to people, yes, try your best to walk the right road, but sometimes there are hiccups on the journey. And I was having a conversation with a friend one time, and he was explaining to me that he would like to have a relationship with God, but he feels as though the fact that he may slip up sometimes and make mistakes, he doesn't have a right to really ask God for certain things, or with the word, come to God and pray. So he feels as though if he isn't perfect, he doesn't have the right to pray to God and ask God for certain things. So we need to definitely be more real and just show people that it's a long journey and we have hiccups along it.
Wow. So you're saying basically you have to get 100%. Is 100 or nothing at all? Because without 100%, it means that, you know, God is not interested in you. But we need to make that message make that message very, very clear that there is grace. The Bible says, where sin abounds, grace doth much more abound, which means that even though there is sin, that the grace of God covers our sins. And when we are determined that we want to do right, that the grace of God is there every day to bring us in the right path. Because once we have human flesh, we are going to fail and falter. It's not if, it's just when and how often, you know. So it's a case of helping people to understand that this is a walk of faith as any other walk. It's like sometimes you're tired, sometimes you want to stop, but the Holy Spirit is there, available to be there with us. I remember having a conversation quite recently, as yesterday, with somebody recounting how I felt when I got saved, when I walked the altar for the first time. I walked up to the altar and I really gave my heart to the Lord. I was very, very serious about it. And I came back. I walked back down to my bench. I had a serious face. I had my head down. We were taking the bus to the revival services back in the days when we used to have revival services in Antigua for 2 weeks at a time. And I couldn't smile. I just didn't. I said, because if I smile, it means I wasn't saved. It means that I wasn't serious. And so I had kept this serious face all the time. And it's like, because it just seemed that was what was required. You couldn't have any fun, you couldn't laugh, you couldn't chat, you know. But I know I felt the conviction of God in my heart. So it took a while before I could get to the place, and I went and I was exposed to some other Christians young Christians who were ahead of me on the journey, and they were having a good rolling time. I'm like, really? You know, these people not saved? But I was judging them based on the fact that I was thinking that you can't be smiling so and laughing so, you know. But it seemed as if that somehow that lie from the enemy has remained to say to our young people that fun goes out the door when Jesus comes into your heart. That is not true. And we want people to know that very, very clearly. And I really thank both of you for sharing on that score. I know, Shioma, I just want to poke at you just a little bit, because you say that you like hymns. That is not normal, Shioma. That is for people of my age, if I may say so, or, you know, older than you are. You're just in your early 20s. I mean, how come?
Rev, I absolutely have no idea. Okay, let me say I did not always love him. I just sat there. Because I did not always love him.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I could probably say that I hated them. Because when I was growing up, church was very boring, and this other organ songs and canticles, and yeah, I'm like, ugh. But I think it has to do with when I took Jesus seriously and really realized that Jesus is the way, and I completely sold out, that the hymns started making more sense to me. They started speaking to me in ways that nothing else would. And I believe it's probably because I just love music and just love singing in general. So that was, I would say, God's way of keeping me centered.
God has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Right, because I know you sing on the worship team, so you are part of the worship leadership doing a lot of contemporary songs as well. So you do have that well that you draw from in terms of contemporary as well as hymns and so forth.
And I would say that I honestly, if you could give me hymns all day, every day, all the time, I would be fine. Ask anybody who knows me. Hymns to me all day. That's just how it is.
So Brandon, what's your favorite type of music though?
My favorite type of music? Okay, well, honestly, if I have to say, I like all genres of music. So gospel, yes. I like dancehall, soca, R&B, even pop music. I like all types of music. That's right.
Hip hop and all that.
Everything.
Interesting. And we want to make it very, very clear that music transcends culture almost, in terms of not just there's Christian in all of these lyrics. And I think, you know, I grew up thinking that once it was calypso, it was a no-no. Once it was a quote unquote a love song was a no-no, all of these sort of things, recognizing that there are people who are in love who sing about, sometimes they sing about life issues. And it's really the content of the song rather than just even who sang it or what genre of music it is. All of it is part of God's creativity, and all of it is God has used to reach different people. I remember years ago, I was actually at Zion at the time. Some young people were singing some rap songs in church, and I was like, listen, I ain't understand a thing y'all saying, but I realize you're not singing to me. But your people, they understand because they're singing with you. They are bopping their head when you're singing. And I realize, okay, once they get it and the message is good, I am good. I don't need to understand it because, of course, not all genres of music appeal to everybody else. But if we have a section of our community where the music appeals to and there's certain things that they like, then we have to think about how can we make sure that they feel welcome. Because that's also part of being welcome. That things that you like, that bring you comfort, that send to you, that help you to understand the issues of life, that those things are represented where you try to where you worship. Okay, now we've been talking a lot from a spiritual standpoint, and I'm really pleased about that. That we do have young people who are focused on spiritual things. What about young people in ministry? Right now, the Moravian Church needs another 5 or 10 young people to step up in ministry. Do you see any young people coming forward? Is the ministry an alternative? They either the full-time or part-time ministry of the church as a pastor or Christian minister of Christian education or some other type of ministry. Is that an option? And I'm not saying specifically for you, but do you think that there are young people around who are thinking that that is an option for them? Brandon.
Okay, so based on my experiences, I don't think that I have encountered any youths at my age that are interested in going into that type of ministry. I have seen older people, not much older people, but people in like their 20s that are going into ministry, right? But speaking from my standpoint, sometimes people may feel like they are not worthy to go into ministry, right? Based on their life experiences or how they may live their life, sometimes they feel as good and not worthy to stand on the altar and bring the word to people and take up that kind of responsibility. Because I think it is definitely a very, very big responsibility.
Chioma?
I would say when young people hear about ministry, people in general probably you think pastor initially. With that being said, I think that one-sided way of thinking is a deterrent. However, I would not say that people, my peers, people I interact with, would have never thought about it. I think what again would hinder the thought becoming more elaborate would be I don't want to say the limitations, but specifically speaking in our context, Moravian Church, I don't think that we want to be in charge of a whole church. I think that there are different desires and different passions that we might have, and we, instead of thinking of it in the context of church, we have to now think about how we could fit it in the secular world. So what I'm really trying to say is I think, and I'm using this very loosely because I don't know the whole thing about it, but I think we need to redefine ministry or explain or allow the young people to understand the dynamics of ministry. And when we do that, we could have a wider it could reach a wider audience. So let's say, for example, I'm interested in music. We have ministers of music, but if that is pushed in terms of that is an area that I can minister in the Church of Jesus Christ, that could pique a lot of interest. I am interested in psychology or medicine or something. If we, said that we could be involved in ministry, we could be involved in ministry or the life of the church in these areas, then I think we could pique a lot more interest and not have it as, well, you have to be a pastor of this church. Yeah, I think that is what causes us to be a little scared, honestly. But I think that the people that we need, we already have them. It's just something needs to be unleashed.
We already have them. We just need to unleash something. Okay, I'm gonna hold on to that. Believing that they're already there. Something has to be unleashed, something has to be unlocked. We got to find the right variables to bring things into being. Tell me though, how is your congregation, or how is the church in general preparing you to grow your spiritual life? How is the church helping you to nurture your faith? Brandon, I'm going to start with you, because we want you to live in 2020. We want you to live in 2020, and how are we preparing you to grow your faith? And how then, if we are not doing a good job at it, what do we need to be doing?
Well, for me, what I can say is, well, firstly, I'll do it in steps. So the first thing that they have helped me with is basically being comfortable in church. Now, at the church I go to, Evangel Moravian, there aren't a lot of youths in the church and coming to church. So the environment that they create, at least for me, is a very good environment, very welcoming. Mm-hmm. And what they try to do too is involve me in the church, right? So to get me involved in different things. So I have a reason to come. Right now, I am a person, I like to listen to the older heads talk. I like to listen to their wisdom, right? So that is what draws me to church. But when I come to church now, I listen to the word from our pastor. And well, for me, what the word that he brings, I always find a message in what he says, and I could relate it to real life, relate it to the world out there. Like when I'm going through the week, I could relate it to something that I'm experiencing. So that is what helps me grow as a Christian. That is what helps me.
Good. Shioma, you jump in here and let me know, how has the church been helping you to nurture your faith?
In my context, it's fun. And and just the thought you were saying when you got saved first, and not thinking that Christians could have fun. I think that is something that I've been exposed to as I started early in my teenage years. So I was always conscious of the fact that I could be a Christian and I could have fun, because the activities that we would have in church, specific to my congregation and the conference, would be fun activities, but fun activities with a purpose. So you might think you just come into a beach, Nick, or you just going to some fun day and that's all you plan to do. But then at some point, some conversation happens, something happens, and there is a little nugget of Jesus, I would say. So it's always, for me, it's always been fun with a purpose that has really helped me and still helping me, really. And the whole openness that we could ask questions. I believe in asking questions. I love to ask questions, and I have that privilege of seeking the wisdom of those I have around me, not just in my congregation, but in the conference, not just from pastors, but different members in the congregation. So that has really been a plus.
Wonderful. I hope that this is my last question, because I was asking how is the church helping you to nurture your faith? Or how is the church helping you to navigate this intensely sexual culture that we live in? This is now a question about culture. How is the church helping you to deal with the perversion and the pornography and the hypersexuality and the alternative sexualities in terms of the LGBTQ and so on? How is the church helping you in premarital sex? We realize young people, they market a lot of this stuff to your generation. How is the church helping you to deal with that? Brandon.
Well, I have not experienced any talks, or I haven't experienced anything in the church dealing with talking about premarital sex or the LGBTQ community. But I believe what we should do is firstly educate the younger ones about the different things about sex and sexuality. So things such as soul ties, things such as STDs, we should explain it to them. We should educate them on that, because even though we want them to walk a certain route, they need to know about it and the dangers of certain things. After we explain that to them, the best thing I think we can do is just talk about it and plant a seed in their mind. Because sometimes always drilling somebody and talking to them about this one topic, telling them this is what you should do and this is what you should not do, it could be very, the word I'll use is annoying sometimes for some people. So just having certain conversations, whether it be in a group or one-on-one, just planting that seed in their mind would cause them to think about it when they are by themselves and cause them to really make that change within themselves.
Good. Shioma?
I agree with Brandon. We have, as recently as the last few weeks, we've had this series of discussions on topics that pique the interest of young people: weed, alcohol, sex, tattoos, piercings. And when in our youth group, on a conference level, we have a youth fellowship, and the pastors have been a part of the sessions. And what I would honestly say is basically what Brandon was saying, is that it's not a drilling, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, but more of a, okay, this is what the Bible says, this is what God requires of you. And you almost feel like okay, I shouldn't say that. You almost feel like it is okay to have particular struggles, right? But it's what you do with them. You understand? I think a lot of times what we hear is don't have sex before you're married. Don't have tattoos. Don't smoke weed. Don't drink alcohol, and all these things. And it's not a do's and don'ts and don't do and don't do. But what our pastors have done is more or less give us the real life feeling of, yeah, you might have these temptations, but subject these temptations to God. So it's almost like it's less pressure. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's almost like it's less pressure, and pointing me in a way that is not dictating. You're not telling me, but you're just saying, hey, this is the way in which Jesus would allow you. So it's more of a relationship with Jesus, as opposed to just don't do this, don't do that.
Interesting conversation. Very, very interesting conversation. I want to end there, but before I go, just want to ask either of you if there is anything in particular that you would want to say to your leaders, like pastors or other leaders in church, you as a young person looking at church from your vantage point, is there anything else? Because you've said so much. Is there anything else that you just want to briefly say as we close to us as leaders? Chioma?
Be real first and foremost. Be real and be embracing without condoning wrong. You could be there for us. You could be there for us in the sense of correcting us, but we could still feel and know that you love us. We mean well most times, but we just honestly we just want to know that we have people that have our backs and who are willing to struggle with us and to pray with us, journey with us, and to love us genuinely, as Jesus does.
Nice. Brandon, you get the final word.
Yes, so I would like to say that to the pastors and the leaders, reaching out to young people may be a struggle sometimes, and it will be a struggle, but you just need to continue trying, continue reaching out to them, just being consistent, and creating an environment of, as Chioma would have said, love, comfort, embrace, and just continue being supportive so that they will feel comfortable being among everyone in the church. So that's my final word.
Well, Chioma Henry and Brandon Edwards, thank you for sharing as you have done today. I was looking at the program last week and saying, okay, it's basically the same program we're going to have, but I believe that we're able to cover some additional grounds. And because just an organic conversation we're having going all the way through, I see so much grace, so much gifting in both of you, and in also in the two that we spoke with last week, and pray that as a church we can really be able to wrap our arms around you as young people and nurture you and help you to find yourself, find your place in God, find yourself in God's story, and be able to make your mark on the world. You are beautiful in so many ways, and there are great things up ahead for you. The church loves you, even though it may not seem so sometimes. Loves you dearly, and really wants to keep in connection with you. May God continue to bless you both and all our young people indeed as you continue to make strides in the world. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Courage in Crisis. We've had a beautiful conversation with Brandon Edwards from the Evangelical Congregation in Tobago and Chioma Henry from the Zion Moravian Church in Tobago and in St. Kitts, sorry. And they have just shared beautifully with us and helped us to understand better about our young people and how we can love them even better. I'm your host today, Algernon Lewis. It's been my pleasure to bring this program to you. I look forward to seeing you next week. In the next few programs, we're going to be still looking at young people, but looking at those who are going on further education, what school is going to be like, and other things like that as we try to position ourselves going forward, dealing with young people for August. And then we'll go into some other programs as the time rolls around. If you have some comments, you can always send them forward. And okay, you can also share this program with somebody who you think would enjoy listening. Have a good evening and bye-bye.